We are live. Believe Nation, happy Monday. Monday is my mentoring day, so I spend the day mentoring the people on my team. It's been wild. It's been fun. I try to spend one day per week just spending time with my team because they bring so much more value and energy to my business than I do as a single human. Zayn, the man in the house, already says mentoring day. So I'm excited to help them more, but I got a special guest I'm going to introduce you to. You're going to love this. We're going to bring a lot of value to anybody who is trying to monetize their following. And there he is.
Hey Evan, how are you?
Good. How are you, man?
I am fantastic. Sorry, I'm in a kind of a weird hotel room with like weird natural light, but I feel like it's decent. It's not my normal ring light.
All right. It's okay. We got you. I like the green chairs behind. It's all good.
Thank
Uh,
you, and thanks for taking time for me.
we got it. Believe Nation, Marshall Sandman in the house. I'm going to read off. He's officially the managing partner of Animal Capital, the first Gen Z focused venture capital fund. We're going to talk about how to make money as an influencer and also all the fun stuff that you're doing behind the scenes. How do you introduce yourself when you're talking to people?
That's what I say, and then people have absolutely no idea what it means.
Right, right.
And then I've worked my like where how the hell did this happen down to like a hot 150-second really fast explanation, and then we take time to go deeper. But it's a Animal Capital is a $15 million Gen Z oriented, I wouldn't call it Gen Z focused venture capital firm, mostly health and wellness, fintech, and consumer, underpinned by three of the most famous male social media stars in the world.
I like it. And so is your goal now to recruit more talent? Like, what are you investing into? What are the opportunities you're looking at right now?
Sure. So the way that it really works is, as you know, people watching this may or may not know, what a venture fund typically does is pick a particular size company and a particular topic or kind of subject matter or vertical, and just invest usually the same sort of check sizes. So for us, we write anywhere between $100,000 and $300,000 check into seed and Series A businesses that are health and wellness based, fintech based, consumer based, a little bit of media. And usually what that ends up really meaning is they usually just launched a product or service, or they have it, it exists, it works really well, and they're about to launch it. And so we're just finishing the fundraising bit of it that's gone relatively nicely. And we're just focused on finding businesses, and I say this a little bit tongue in cheek, but it's impact investing for profit. We really only like investing in things that make people's lives better or more fun. And if it doesn't do one of those two things or both of those things, we're probably not investing in it.
And looking at your background of helping basically blow up a whole bunch of different influencers, how does influencer marketing fit into this? So you're not only, if you're getting into fintech, you're not just looking at how do you get the next social media star and blow them up. Is it how do we find great companies and then use influencers to spread the message?
Yeah, so you're hitting on what I think is like definitely what people consider to be the sexiest part of what we do. Um, Number one, I would say uh, the guys are focused on helping these founders grow, and sometimes that means that they're the face of the business, but most
Mm-hmm.
times it doesn't. A lot of times, what we do with Griffin Johnson, Noah Beck, and Josh Richards, three of the founding members of the Sway House, and Josh is one of obviously the founders of Talent X, the management company, is we work with the founders not on them being the marketing strategy, but what are all of your different sort of like growth points and pain points. So sometimes it's being behind the scenes, and maybe the right target audience is not exactly their demo for Gen Z, which is like 60% women between the ages of 15 and 28. Maybe it is 28. I'm a 29-year-old white guy. Maybe it's 29-year-old white guys, and then they'll get on the phone with founders for hours and work through what their marketing strategy is and talk about how it's going to or not going to work. And a lot of times that's what founders want, is they want to make sure that before they go use their gigantic marketing budget, that there's a chance that it's going to work, or even if their marketing can be 10% more effective, that hour-long phone call or that 5-hour-long phone call with me and Josh or me and Noah or just them can be really, really helpful in that way. So we oftentimes help founders with that, but other times, just because we've done so much work, and I guess I haven't said anything about my background. I went to Cornell. I worked at Goldman Sachs for several years. I ran a small pool of venture capital at Warner Media before joining up with the guys. So between all of the brand deals they've done, which is like, between the three of them, and probably close to 100 over the years, and all of the businesses I've worked with, we try to do other things for businesses other than marketing. So if they're raising money, we'll call a bunch of the founders that we know and try and help them raise money and help them get some checks in the door. If they're a big direct-to-consumer cosmetic brand and they really want to be in Walmart, we've had a bunch of businesses going to Walmart. We'd call the people at Walmart and say, hey, is this business a fit for you? So a lot of times that sexiness of what we do on the marketing side gets us in the door. And then we offer all of the stuff that a regular venture capital firm does.
It feels like you're offering a lot more than what a typical venture capital fund does.
Well, we have to. There's two pieces of it. One is I have been doing this for a long time, but it's the first time it's our fund. And a lot of times you have to overperform and I wouldn't say overpromise, but underpromise and then severely overdeliver. So we like to do a lot of different things. And number two is, the number one question I get from investors is, what happens if the guys fuck up? And like, fair question, right? Like they're young, they happen to be very responsible, they happen to have made a lot of the right decisions, but all it takes is one bad decision, right? And what I tell them is that they've proven themselves over and over and over and over again. This is another proof point for them. Someone like Mark, we just opened a production company in partnership with Mark Wahlberg a month or two ago. Mark Wahlberg has probably one of the most pristine reputations in Hollywood. He would not take a bet on Josh. Excuse me. He would not take a bet on Josh if he didn't believe in him and believe that he was ridiculously responsible. So we need to over deliver because we need to prove, whatever stigma there is about young people investing, we need to prove it wrong and open the door for other people behind us to do what we're doing.
Talk a little bit about the business acumen behind it, because I think a lot of people would see them, they may not be as familiar with you, but they're familiar with the partners who are kind of always on TikTok, always online, but not talking entrepreneurship, not going hardcore business strategies. But you can, I guess to the smart eye see, there's a lot of business smarts behind everything that was created. Talk to me about the business acumen behind the people.
Sure. Listen, I think that first and foremost, being, I think Josh is the youngest of them and Griffin's the oldest of those three, 19 being Josh and 23 being Griffin. They have demonstrated a tremendous amount of responsibility and maturity and business acumen by saying, okay, I've come into cash earlier than I probably ever would have expected. Josh's parents are public school teachers. Griffin's parents, own and operate a farm in Indiana. We're going to bring some professionals and Michael Gruen and Marshall to, help us shape this strategy and help us make something that's going to work and teach us how to do this. That paired with, we've probably done 400 founder calls, me, plus them over the course of the last year, has taught them a lot. I think that they have learned a lot from me and Michael. I think they've learned a lot from their conversation with founders, and they've learned a lot from the interviews they've done, and they continue to be extremely hungry. For me, I guess this isn't private because we're having a nice public conversation, but as an example, Josh was on Cheddar last week talking about the fund launch, and they asked Josh, what he was looking for in his founders, and I thought that was a great question. And Josh talked about, he partially quoted me, and he said, I really want people that that we want to go to war with, that are willing to pivot their businesses, because oftentimes the final evolution of a venture-backed business is nothing like what the original iteration of that business was like. And it was moments like that made me realize, holy shit, like, they're not just learning things, but they're putting them into practice, and we're really doing good work here. And so for me, I have a long decade-long background in value investing and in the space and in bulge bracket banking and whatever. But they've proven that it's not just street smarts. That they want to learn the business side. They want to understand what the difference is between an option and a safe note and all those things. So I am just trying to facilitate and make sure that they get all of that under their belt, so that more and more, I don't even have to be on the calls. And I think that's the best final version of this.
Is there a company or a individual that you're trying to model this after?
I think that we are the amalgamation of a bunch of great other people that have taken smaller steps in this space. I think the most obvious one is Ashton Kutcher and Sound Ventures. He is someone that was viewed as like a really good looking, really talented, ultra famous actor and model. I think he was a model before that '70s show. Maybe I'm not, maybe that's not true. Was I think that's
I don't
right.
know. I don't
I
know.
think I think he was. And now, if you talk to anyone in Silicon Valley, you talk to founders that Actions talk to, they are so blown away by what he brings to the table, and not just like Hollywood connections and random people to do marketing stuff, but he talks about patent law and he talks about defensibility and he talks about product market fit and margin expansion in a way that a lot of VCs don't, and he wants to get his hands dirty. So I think that what he did by sticking some structure and a tent pole under what he was doing as an actor and on the celebrity side, I think he's probably our number one quote unquote role model. And then there's a couple of others. I think what Rich Kleiman built with Kevin Durant and 35 Ventures is similar, building alongside ultra famous, forward-facing, marketable talent. And then, lastly, I think that the folks, and we love these guys and we talk to them all the time, the Chainsmokers who started Mantis Ventures, they are a great version of this model. And I'm a millennial and they are quote unquote millennials. They're closer to 40 than they are to 20. But they knew what it meant to use their sort of sexiness and celebrity to get in the room and then to drive other value to these businesses. And so there is some framework for what we're doing, but no one has ever attacked this entire generation or brought as many different things to the table as we do. But if they, I don't want to say their crawl led to our walk, their walk and run led to our ability to walk and run alongside them.
I love it. So if somebody is looking are you taking pitches now? Are you open for business, or that's after the fundraise?
I'm open for business.
He's open for business. He's doing it.
Yeah, I'm open for business. I say this all the time because we've worked with founders since I've started from age 19 to like 71. I think is like the range of ages, and so a huge part of what we have to do is the fact that Josh wanted to be taken seriously as someone that was going to be a multimillionaire, and not just a multimillionaire that was investing and being successful in business, but was also giving back and being thoughtful about the community he was existing in since he was 17. I need to capture that in what I'm doing as I look at businesses and then bring those businesses back to the guys to use their time wisely, get on the phone with founders. So I take as many pitches seriously as I can possibly take. That said, for those watching, please, for the love of God, don't message me on LinkedIn. I'm not going to read it.
So, okay. So, I mean, we have Instagram, but this will be a YouTube video on my channel. Where do you want people to go to dive in and learn more?
I would say Instagram and Twitter are great. If you want to Google what we've done, I think the best, the cold outreaches that I respond to, and this is very much the secret sauce for getting an email back or ending up on the phone with the guys, is demonstrate that you have any sense of what we've done already. Like if you sort of get on and you just say, hey, this is my business. It's like hair gel and I love it and it works really well and it costs X number of dollars and I've sold 1,100 of them. You're probably not going to be it. But if you say, hey, I see that you guys invested in X business and you help them with this distribution. Also, this is all publicly available information. Like if you Google me, if you Google Josh or Michael Gruen or Noah, it's so easy to find. It is like 3 extra minutes. And it shows like, okay, it's worth a 15-minute phone call. Like they did a little bit of their homework. And just send me a DM, send me on Instagram. Twitter is definitely the easiest way to reach me. I think just because I just started my Twitter, so I have a very small following, so it's a really good way to get to me. But like my LinkedIn is a graveyard.
Okay, so that's a hack. So we'll link up your Twitter and Instagram below. You guys can go check them out in the description of this video. What other hacks would you tell people for trying to get on the radar of a VC? So demonstrate interest, and that they actually know what your fund is all about, not just another one. What are 2 to 3 other ones that you'd really look at?
I mean, and I think these are things that go beyond us, because I think for us, the reality is we're probably like the most accessible and least accessible people, right? Like, or that's probably the view. Is I've got like 8,000 followers. I have no followers, but like the guys have tens of millions of followers on platforms. So you know a lot about them in their personal life, but they're probably the hardest people to get in touch with. That's not true. If you spend 10 minutes looking at Josh, you know that Josh and I spend almost all day together, every single day on the phone. You ping me instead of Josh, your chances just went up 15-fold. The same thing is true to big VC firm. It's a couple of things. Number one is look what they've invested in and try and figure out how what you do relates to what they do already, and how your business and what you're doing and your product market fit fits into the portfolio. It's so funny because I can see Josh behind the camera just walked out in front of my window because my hotel room's on the ground floor. Anyway, that's one is do your homework about their portfolio and how what you do fits in with what they do. Number two is find proof points that demonstrate traction. People are making up like different multiples and like, every CPM at one point was made up. Like someone deciding that a CPM was based on 1,000 people is like a really stupid, like random metric that someone decided on. Make up your metrics and talk about the way that you benchmark yourself and what your goals are and your KPIs and how you hit them. And then if you haven't hit them because your business is so new, how you plan to hit them. And so I think there's a lot of things that people typically don't do. Also, don't make a business plan. I know that sounds stupid. And if you're in like a marketing class in college, you probably have to make a business plan just because whatever. The reality is that your business is going to change 100 times. 1 page, 2 pages on like, here's the different directions it can go. Here are our strategies for growth is a lot more realistic than this is our revenue for next year. I just spoke with a brand that's a consumer packaged good brand, and they had a specific dollar number and a specific number of packs of what they were selling that they're going to sell in 2021. And I was like, there's no fucking way. You're not even going to be close. You're going to be way above this or way below this.
So you're just going from DM, because most VCs are not going to tell you that. They're not going to say, okay, don't write a business plan. So you're just going from DM, okay, there's something about this person I like, to just hopping on a phone call?
If it's super compelling, yes. For us, most of the time, I think, honestly, a lot of our deals, and we've done both. We have done deals with people that are like random teenagers that slid into my DMs that were ridiculously impressed. The DMs were just like, wow, like you just, it's kind of like when you, every once in a while, big colleges will publish like the most amazing college essay, and you sit there and you're like, man, like I probably could have gotten into a better school if someone had showed me how crazy, whatever, and outside the box things can be. Most of our deals end up coming from big VC firms already that have invested in an earlier round and think that we can, lead the business to some sort of growth, which is a really, really double-edged sword. Because for us as a VC, like I have a fiduciary obligation to my investors to do the best that I can do to invest their money to make them money. And for me, what that means is if you need us for traction, like you probably need something else too. It's really unlikely that we're the only problem.
So do you guys want to be the lead investor? Is that the goal for the business you're bringing on?
Not in this fund. Maybe in the next one. It's a $15 million fund on the scheme of things is like it's probably like a micro venture capital firm. Hopefully we're successful. Hopefully we raise $50 million rather than 15 in a few years. And then we'll be ready to lead and have the infrastructure to do that. For us, we really, really like being the second check. We also really like being the first smaller check and then going back out and finding the lead investor. We've done that a couple of times and we love doing that.
So almost like an angel round, or what's a smaller check?
Almost like we know they're raising a $3 million round and they want the lead to be $1 million. We're not going to write $1 million check. We probably cap out at $300,000 to $500,000 at absolute most. And we say, actually, this really fits in with, I'm making this up. This is not a real life scenario. Mabron, Lightspeed, Marcy Venture Partners, Andreessen, and we go to this place and say, hey, this really fits in with XYZ you're doing. We're going in. We're not ready to lead with a term sheet, but we're happy to work with you on your term sheet.
And just for the audience, so people understand, how often are VCs partnering up on deals instead of just doing it all on their own?
VCs like to do it all on their own. VCs really, and I'm sure you know this. VCs really like to do it all on their own. I think that what has become more market is to have a VC lead your round, and then get a bunch of strategics in for much, much smaller checks, even smaller checks than those strategics really want to be at the table for. If a strategic is like a big family office and they're really into like streaming infrastructure, maybe like the family was built as like an internet business and made a bunch of money in 1999, so they have a bunch of connections in the streaming and internet space. They probably want to write $1 million check too. It probably doesn't make a lot of sense for them to write a smaller check, because if they write smaller checks, they're not ever going to deploy all the capital they need to deploy. But they'll still get into great deals because they want to write. It's better to take the small allocation than not take it at all. So a lot of times these big venture firms are allowing strategics into the round. For us, since there's no one really like us right now, and I'm sure there will be, I hope that people copycat us because we're so successful that they feel like there's a big blank spot in the market to copycat, which I think is, a tent pole of what Warren Buffett used to say, is that I think he said something like 30% of pioneers, or like 10% of pioneers like do amazingly, and then like 85% of copycats, and then the follow ones do horribly. Like, I know I'm like completely butchering the quote, but it was something about how copycats can be ridiculously successful. We're pretty unique right now, and so we usually get a nice carved out allocation to do things alongside the venture funds, because we also treat it like a two-way street and like a two-way relationship. Like, we are in a symbiotic relationship where we want the VC firms to need us, and we don't want to need the VC firms, but we do. And so we really like to see it both ways.
Well, I think it just speaks volumes to what you're doing, in that VCs don't like working with others, and yet they're calling on you before you've even done raising your fund, and they're trying to bring you in on things. Like, I think it speaks a lot to your place already in the marketplace, the reputation, history you have, and the opportunity ahead.
Yeah, I agree with you, and listen, I hope. All I hope is that what people look around and other talent wants to get involved in the venture space, and I hope that this empowers them to do that, and I hope that my phone, and it has. I've been really fortunate in this way. I hope my phone continues to ring with really wonderful celebrities that say, "Hey, I'm interested in being on the phone with founders and understanding how I can add value in a way that's not just a social media post." And for me, that's the most, making money for my investors, and that are the two most important things.
For the influencers out there kind of watching, wanting to play a bigger game, it's been fun watching your partners do it. There's also a bunch of others become a lot more entrepreneurial, play a much bigger game than just brand deals for their TikTok.
Yep.
What advice would you give to the influencers who really want to blow up the business side of their business?
So we talk about this in a couple of different ways, but if you ask Josh or Gruen or Michael Gruen this, they'll definitely say the exact same thing. We like the model that we were implementing going into the venture fund was called LEO: license, endorse, and own. And you want to have about a third, a third, and a third. And if you're able to fill those buckets and own a little bit about what you do, endorse, which is sort of a typical brand deal, and license, which is sort of a hybrid of the two. Look to own a piece of the businesses that you're working with. Sometimes it makes sense and sometimes it doesn't. The problem is that you need to align yourself with somebody, and it might be you, it might be that person, but more than likely at the beginning stages it's not, that it wants to partner with you on the equity side, not just your manager or agent that needs 10% of the cash. Because that's where people get in a lot of trouble. And we're so fortunate that Josh and Griffin and Noah have such a big relationship with TalentX, the management company, because Michael and Josh founded TalentX. So they're not worried about the 10%. They're worried about the long-term economics. And that's where people get caught up, is you might be a ridiculously big supermodel and you might get $250,000 for an Instagram post. But then what ends up happening is like one day you just stop getting those deals. It just happens. And Evan, I think you and I are probably similar ages, but you and I can both think back to the late 2000s, early 2010s, and teens, to people we thought would be famous for forever and that aren't for that exact reason, that didn't take the opportunity to build. Number two is, and this is not in that Leo concept, is find a way to consult with the brand that you're working for and build a little bit of a side business to your side business, because you might not always be the right face of your business. And there's going to be a lot of businesses where you're not. And if you build a reputation as someone that can help develop a social media strategy or help develop a go-to-market strategy, you can do a lot that isn't just broad social media. And then a lot of times it's not just consumer products. You can step into a freaking you could have a substantive conversation where you make money with MetLife about what's not working with on their marketing side, and it's going to teach you a lot, and it's going to teach them a lot.
Last question, because I know we're hitting the clock. For the people who maybe don't want to be an influencer, but want to be like you, want to be the guy who doesn't have the tens of millions of followers, but is the brains behind everything and structuring deals kind of behind the scenes, what advice would you give those people?
Every single connection is important. Every single connection is important. Number two is and this is such a canned answer, and I apologize, but it's just it's I have cousins that are all in their early 20s, and want to do something somewhat like this, and like can I intern whatever, and I'm like, no, I can't. No, I'm gonna take applications for intern like a regular company. Um, go work at a big company, and whether that's an investment bank because you're certain that you want to do investing or deal structuring and you need to learn kind of the groundwork. And it doesn't have to be a big investment bank. I worked for over a year at a little place called the Jordan Emerson Group, JEGI, in Midtown Manhattan, which was focused on media, which is what transported me into this career. It wasn't my time at Goldman Sachs. There's a million boutique banks out there that love to teach these fundamental skill sets. Go do that. If you beat enough doors down, I just did this with my cousin. I helped him apply to 145 jobs. He just got an offer yesterday. I'm so thrilled for him. Braxton, I think he's watching this. He's commented on this. He's moving to New York this summer. I'm so thrilled and proud of him. But he beat enough doors down that it happened for him. Not because he was the smartest, but he got the smartest because he did enough interviews and whatever. That's one. And maybe you're not a banker, and that's totally fine. If you know what industry you might want to go into, go to a big company where you understand, where they have a marketing arm and they have a PR arm and they have a product development arm, and find a way to learn different pieces of that business, because that's what's going to empower you to understand all of the cogs that make these different businesses work. And then lastly, and this one's really, it's more important than the other two, you need to have a side hustle early. And it doesn't matter if it makes no money. It doesn't matter if it is, I mean, for me, my side hustle when I was leaving Warner Media was raising money for a charity in New York that was making sure that kids during COVID who would normally get free meals from their school were still eating. I obviously didn't make any money because I was raising money for a charity, but like, it is so empowering to meet new people that aren't your 9 to 5 people. And it opens up your entire world and it shows you how the world really works. And it is the best way to get going into like the hustle mindset, is just saying my 9 to 5 is not enough. I'm going to do 5% more. And that can be 10%. And the economies of scale of how good you get at your job and your other thing, they'll start to shift to where you're like, actually, I just made my first paycheck. I made $200, but that $200 will be so much more meaningful to you than your salary. And it grows and grows. And Evan, I know that you know this very well, as those side hustles start to add up.
I love it. I could talk to you all day, man. But if you guys want to follow Marshall, learn more about him, we will link up his Twitter and Instagram below. Don't go to his LinkedIn because he's not responding to you there. Twitter, Instagram. There's also a great article that came out talking about the new venture that we'll link up in the description as well. Marshall, appreciate you, man, and best of luck with the new venture.
Evan, thank you so much. I really appreciate you. Thanks for having me on.
Much love.
Talk soon.